we were here on Monday, and we got a late start, which was interesting because court was supposed to start at 8:30 for me, not for you. And the jury folks go down in the jury pool, and those things happen downstairs. We came back up, and we selected the jury, and then we broke for lunch to be back here at 3. And somehow, amazingly, the camera was here at 3 p.m. Thanks, Robbie.
All right, present of the jury. All jurors are present.
Counsel, stipulate to the presence of the jury.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Harris, can you continue on the stand, please? Counsel, resume your question, please.
Just a few more questions here. Mr. Harris, you testified earlier about some of the bigger clients that you have. Are they concerned at all about your reputation?
Yeah, I have a rather large client in St. George, Utah. It's a supplement company that has. They are very active online. They do some online marketing, online sales, and I had to have a sit down with them. They gross about 300 or 400 million a year, and they're pretty valuable to me. And I had to sit them down and just let them know there were things on the internet about me out there that I had some concerns about. I just wanted to let them know and kind of let them know before they found out on their own. It was embarrassing to let them know, and they're very understanding because they're in the retail business and they understand that. People do what people do. But it's a tough step to take with a client that you're kind of walking on eggshells because you're afraid that, what they're going to do or what they're going to say. Have a very good relationship with them, and for the time being, we are good. And they understand what's going on, and they have seen some of the things online, and they have kind of given me a pass.
Any other clients have any issues with any of this?
Yeah, these particular individuals who own this company up there, they have a nonprofit called United We Pledge. It's a nonprofit. I'm the attorney for that nonprofit. It's a real nonprofit, and they are very concerned about having me to have anything negative about the nonprofit. They just don't. They're building a theme park near St. George, Utah. That is going to be an American history theme park. It's supposed to open in 2026. I hope I'm around for that. I'm very excited to be part of it. My wife is a retired high school history teacher. I'm a political science major. Super excited to be part of that theme park, and they're going to teach children about American history. And they're going to build replica buildings of American historical sites. They're from Philadelphia and the Capitol and other places. And so I really want to be part of that, and I want to be part of United We Pledge. And I have very big concerns about my reputation and what's said online because I really want to see that through. I really want to be in that. I'm excited about it.
Have you worked hard on building a reputation as an attorney?
I spent my whole life on it. And I think everybody, I believe most of us have spent our whole lives to try and be perceived as good individuals and honest people. Yes.
Now, as a result of the defendant's actions, have you suffered damages?
Yeah, I've encountered some damages. I believe that defendant Del Casal has breached that contract, didn't turn over the website, and there was a multitude of factors there, but it never made its way to me in the past. Never made its way to me, and I estimate that it's probably created me damages much higher, but at least $35,000 worth of damages, trying to reclaim it, and what I've lost as a result of that breach.
And what about damages to your reputation?
Here I'm really at your mercy, because it really is what the value of a reputation is. I had a law professor that said, you can only spend your integrity once. So, if you're ever going to sell out, make sure you get a lot, because you can never get it back, once you've sold it. And I've always tried to embrace that my integrity just wasn't for sale, and that there was no price high enough for which I was willing to sell it for. And I'm asking you to render a verdict and to give an award that you believe is fair commensurate with a person trying to spend their life, trying to be honest and true, and having damage to their reputation.
If the jury does find in your favor, Mr. Harris, what do you intend to do with the award?
Well, obviously, I'm going to share with the guys. We're all in this together. It's my name on the paperwork, and I didn't want to drag them into it, but we are together, and we will all share in that.
Your Honor, I'll pass the witness.
Cross.
Give me one moment, close your diligence, trying to get my notes here.
Go ahead.
Mr. Harris, I'm gonna ask you a few, ask you a few clarification questions going from yesterday's testimony to today, so if I can go in some sort of order. I believe you began by talking about your educational background,
Yes.
and you were a lawyer in 1994, is that when you first time you became an attorney?
Yes.
And how many years ago is that, roughly?
I think it's 29.
Okay.
I'm coming up on my, no, that's not right.
And,
Well, in 2024, it'll be 30. 28 years, 27 years.
And in terms of your experience as an attorney, you were an arbitrator as well, is that correct?
Yeah, I've arbitrated over 350 cases here in Clark County, Nevada.
Did you mention that you were an arbitrator yesterday?
No,
Why not?
I'm also a short trial judge.
The question was, why did
I'm
you?
also a mediator for the foreclosure mediation program. I've also served as a
Question, sir, why didn't you mention any of that yesterday when you were asked about your education?
Can I just restate the
It wasn't
question?
part of my education.
Yeah, I asked you if you were ever an arbitrator, and I believe your answer was yes.
That's correct.
Okay, and I asked you, did you mention that yesterday?
No.
That you were an arbitrator, and why not?
I wasn't asked.
Okay, well, I thought you were a counsel. Did your counsel ask you about your professional experience and as a lawyer, correct?
No, he asked me about my education.
Okay, well, let's go back to being an arbitrator. What exactly, you said you did 300 cases, arbitrated 300 cases here in Clark County?
I think 360, 365, 368, I can't remember exactly. I could get that number for you. if you
What,
wanted.
for the jury, what does ADR stand for?
Alternative dispute resolution.
Okay, what does that mean? What's alternative dispute resolution for members of the jury? Give us some example, in plain English.
Here in Clark County, we have a mandatory arbitration program for any claims that are less than $50,000 for which people are referred to participate to try and resolve their disputes prior to coming here with a jury. Generally, they go to a short trial program after that if there is an appeal filed, which is really a de novo, but it's kind of like an appeal for most normal people. So this is a program that they've signed where they have attorneys that are assigned as arbitrators, and it's a process of deselection. Deselection, essentially, you kick off people off the list, and you're able to arbitrate a case in front of an arbitrator who's just an attorney here in town.
Thank you. So if I understand, it's basically a method by which people can resolve their disputes or disagreements without going through a long-term litigation and jury trial, is that correct?
That's one method.
And in this case, you filed your lawsuit that we've talked about, correct? You filed a lawsuit, and you caused this case to be exempted from arbitration, is that correct?
Objection, Your Honor, I just object to the relevancy.
I'm trying to figure out where it is. Where are we going with this, counsel?
Your case was exempted from you filed a
Counsel, where are
lawsuit.
we going with this? What's the reason for asking whether or not there are the procedural aspects of the case?
Just going to his experience as an arbitrator and the arbitration program that was not used, I think it's relevant in this case because we're dealing with 4 years of litigation.
Are you asking him why he exempted his case from arbitration?
Just asking simply that he exempted it, it's a yes or no question if he exempted it or not.
Okay, you can answer that question.
Did you exempt this case from arbitration?
I don't think I did. I think I requested an exemption on my pleadings,
That's all.
but I didn't do an exemption.
Right.
What you're referring to is a
No,
petition
Counsel, you
to
answered
exempt.
it. You didn't request it, it was done.
I believe you answered it, thank you.
I don't think I requested it, I think I listed that it was arbitration exempted. I didn't make a request. If I can just clarify,
No question.
matters of punitive
Counsel,
damages.
so counsel, hold on, the reason why is, basically, your counsel can ask you, due to the fact that you allege punitive damage, it's automatically exempted, but go ahead.
You mentioned during your testimony yesterday that you consider Mr. Del Casal your friend, and you still consider him your friend?
Yeah.
Well, you seem hesitant now, but yesterday you were quick to say
Yeah, I
you're
mean,
still
I
friends.
don't hate him,
You don't?
no. I thought he was my friend. When I did the deposition of him, and I asked him in that deposition, I said to him, I thought we were friends. I thought we were, no, you're not. You were vastly mistaken by that. We were never friends. You're nothing to me. I mean, just on and on in the deposition about how much I was never his friend. I'm shocked. I thought we were friends, I did.
And you still, what you said yesterday, you still believe he's a friend?
I have a lot of friends, and sometimes friends do you wrong. But yeah, I mean, you just don't, I don't want any enemies. I just don't want any enemies.
Thank you. I believe you were shown a photograph of Mr. Del Casal yesterday in terms of the order of your testimony. And I'm going to try and give you actually I have the exhibit number here. It's exhibit number 24. Do you have that exhibit book?
I sure do.
Can you turn to that page?
I would be happy to.
24?
Actually, I'm going to call it different exhibit. It's exhibit number 1.
Let's go to one first.
That's the business purchase agreement you have in front of you.
Oh, one.
Switch
Yes.
from-
And can you read the date of this purchase agreement for me?
On March 24th, 2014.
And in terms of what you're buying, I'm gonna highlight here, you were buying can you read that for me, please?
I certainly can. I wrote it, actually. The business known as Equal Rights for Divorced Fathers, ERDF, is a men's rights group or club.
Okay, that's all I wanna know, that,
Mhm.
what you're purchasing. I'm gonna refer you to the page number 4 of that exhibit. Please turn to that. I'm referring to the section number 9 called notices. Can you see that?
I do.
Okay, thank you. And I want you to read the first sentence if you can.
Okay. Any and all notices and demands by either party hereto to the other party required, allowed, or desired to be given hereunder shall be in writing and shall be validly given only if deposited in the United States mail, certified or registered, postage prepaid, return receipt requested, or if made by Federal Express or other delivery service which keeps records of deliveries and attempted deliveries, or if made by a facsimile machine with electronic confirmation of receipt of which is acknowledged, or if a copy thereof is promptly delivered by the delivery service which keeps records of deliveries and attempted deliveries. Service shall be conclusively deemed made on the first business day delivery is attempted, or upon receipt, whichever sooner, if addressed as follows.
That was a long sentence. I apologize. I thought it was the lengthy sentence. But Mr. Harris, this seems like a pretty basic provision in most contracts, that if you have a problem with the other party, that you can provide them notice and demands, basically any concerns. That's the way I interpret it. Is that a fair interpretation of this section, that if you have any demands or concerns, that you'll notify the other party?
It's a very basic contract, as I explained to the jury yesterday. When we attorneys deal with lay people, we need to use caution and care to make sure that they understand. Try not to take advantage of anyone.
You can turn to exhibit number 24, please. We've all seen this. And is this, do you know how this, or who took this photograph?
I think a reporter for the paper took that.
From Union Journal, correct?
I don't know.
Okay.
I believe it was a
And
reporter
is
for the paper.
this a fair representation of the men's club and group that you purchased?
Now?
Just equal rights for divorced fathers, is that a fair representation of the lobby?
Not now, no.
But when you purchased it,
Yeah, that's pretty close, I think.
okay, thank you.
The T-shirt was there. I threw that away, I think. A bad statement about the lady.
How many men did you see in that photograph, approximately?
I see in that photograph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 males. Bless you.
I believe you testified yesterday that when you purchased the business, that you want to make some changes and want to make it more accessible to not just men and basically clean things up. Is that correct?
I did.
Why would you buy a men's group in that situation? You're buying a men's club and group. Did you have a problem with that?
I don't really understand your question.
Why would you buy a men's?
I didn't have a problem with it, I bought it.
Why did you buy this business? Did you plan on changing it when you purchased it?
I did explain that yesterday. Yes.
Why didn't you get a business license when you purchased the business?
Well, I thought the business had a license at the time. I think I explained that yesterday.
Well, of course, an owner, the existing owner would have a business license. I'm talking about how come you didn't purchase a business license when you bought it?
I think we have a matter of interpretation problem. I think a business is licensed, not an owner. Mr. Del Casal went and canceled the license. We are not license holders as individuals. The business location is licensed according to Las Vegas City. And so the license doesn't go from place to place. The license has to hang in, and I'm surprised you don't know this, it has to hang at the location. And so the license is there at the location, it doesn't travel with the person. And he went and he canceled the license that was on the location. I didn't know what happened. It would have been nice if he had tipped me off, but he didn't. And the investigator came out, as I told the jury yesterday, and we fixed it by day's end or the next day, I can't remember exactly.
What is your current license? I don't have it in front of me, I don't know what the exhibit was, but does your current business license, does it have your name on there, or what's the name on your business license?
Equal rights for divorced father.
Okay, does it have your name on there anymore?
I believe it does, but I don't know. But if you look it up online, you'll see my name's on there.
You mentioned yesterday in your testimony a phrase, you mentioned that Mr. Del Casal, after he left the business, that you alleged that he had some, was angry, and you mentioned that you try to kill people with kindness. Do you remember that?
The first part of your question, the compound question, was that I alleged he was angry. I believe he was angry. Everyone said he was angry.
Right.
The second part of your question, the compound question, was if I try to kill him with kindness, Yeah, I did. I did my best.
Does that mean you try to resolve disputes?
You better believe it.
And how did you try to resolve it at that point? You mentioned you were driving by the business and you tried to ignore him, and I think there was some courthouse encounter. This is where you were talking, this is where the concept came up. Did you make a phone call to him or email, or do you have any, if you're trying to kill him with kindness?
Yeah, I'm gonna feel like it's all asked and answered. You know, I told you I used to say hello to him at the courthouse, and he just grunted back at me. I feel like we're just kind of repeating all these things. But that is, I was trying to be cordial and say hello. I was seeing him quite frequently over there at the family courthouse. And that was before COVID, and we used to have to go over there a lot. We don't go over there so much anymore now, we're all online. But I saw him all the time, he was there all the time. And I was trying to say hello and good morning and be as pleasant as I possibly could.
Okay,
Does that answer your question?
not really, but I'll move on.
Okay.
The issue of a bar complaint came up, and you mentioned that it's highly confidential, like top secret. You know that the bar complaints are not confidential once a bar complaint has been resolved. You know that?
Once the bar complaint is resolved,
Once a case closes, the investigation is complete, it's a public record. Are you aware of that?
a complaint that goes to the next level, an initial complaint, I'm not aware of what you're referring to.
Okay, when a bar complaint is
So
investigated.
the answer is no, I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, when a bar complaint is finished and closed, like it was in this case, are you aware that that record is public?
No, yeah, I don't know, I don't think,
Ask and answer.
Okay, ask the answer, I'm allowing him to answer it, go ahead.
Are you aware that's?
I believe you are misrepresenting the actual truth of the matter. They are not public,
We have a disagreement.
not necessarily.
Hold on, counsel, we're not going to start a debate. He asked the question, you answer it, in the discussion. Move on.
You mentioned an email that from Mr. Del Casal to you, I believe it was July 11th. And it mentioned the Attorney General Sophia. And I think that was exhibit number 8. If you could turn to exhibit number 8, please.
No, I didn't mention it. Actually, Mr. Doyle showed it to me and he put it up for the jury in answer to your question.
And we read, I believe you read it again today. And in fact, I got it here in front of me. It says, Leah has created a problem that will need to be addressed and it could affect you, and you are now on notice. Okay, the question is, when you received that from Mr. Del Casal, did you make a phone call to him?
No.
Why not?
Well, he'd already filed a bar complaint against me at that point, and I didn't really think that making a phone call was gonna make a whole lot of sense with a guy who made a false complaint against me.
What's the date the bar complaint was made?
I would have to refer, I think it was in
That's exhibit number
July,
9.
in July of 2016, is that right?
Right, we need the date.
Okay, well, we'll get you a day.
Thank you.
Here in Exhibit 9. It looks like, I'm trying to think on this, because I got word of it different than, it was around July 12th of 2016 when J. Dean 1494 at Gmail made the actual complaint.
The date is, I just want to clarify that the bar complaint came after this July 11th notice. Do you agree?
No. I'm not sure exactly when it got there. I'm assuming I got it on the 13th. I think that's when Rose Coda maybe sent
I was
me
talking about, I'm sorry, let me clarify.
the notice.
I was talking about the prior exhibit, which was number 8, and the data that appeared to be July 11th. I think we reached an agreement on the date of that, so we'll call it the Sophia email.
Okay.
Thank you.
That was August 8th,
You know,
after the bar complaint.
I'm sorry.
That was
The date
August
of-
8th after the bar complaint, right?
Let's go back to that exhibit number 8.
Okay.
The date, just the date from Ernie Del Casal wrote to you was July 11th. Do you see that?
Oh, I do, yes.
Okay, that's all.
Okay.
Let's go to the front page of the bar complaint again, please.
Sure.
And exhibit number 9. And we talked about this in your testimony. You said there was a phone number provided. You see it right there on page 1 for this individual. And did you ever call that individual?
Well, it's Mr. Del Casal, and that's what he said his name was. And no, I never called that number
Okay,
that I'm aware of. I may have at some point, I don't know, but I didn't
thank you.
in response to this.
In regard to exhibit number 9, which is the bar complaint itself, the actual complaint, I believe your testimony was that you mentioned Arturo Sorrosa was not mentioned in the complaint. Do you recall that testimony?
That is what I testified, yes. And it's a fact.
Okay. And do you agree that neither Scott or George are listed in here?
No.
Where do you see Scott or George named in here?
Under names and contact information for other persons who can provide additional information, right there at the top, Counsel,
I'm referring to the body.
regarding your complaint.
I'm referring to the body of the complaint.
Oh,
The body of the complaint, the complaint itself.
no, just Gerald and I are mentioned in the body, but the other guys are listed up top.
You mentioned that the concept of UPL, unauthorized practice of law. Would you agree that practicing law would be, let's say, for example, drafting a complaint?
Was that the question?
That's the question.
Is practicing law drafting a complaint?
Right, for somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, I learned what UPL was from Mr. Del Casal. I didn't know what it was before he said that, as far as the UPL. So that I learned that from him. But drafting, the actual drafting of a draft complaint, is that the practice of law? No.
So when you're drafting a complaint for another individual, you don't consider that practicing law?
Are we
Just
talking
in his
about?
personal opinion, wait, his personal opinion or the opinion of the state bar or this court?
His opinion.
Okay, your opinion, sir.
Okay. Are you talking about a draft, or are you talking about signing a final copy? I need to clarify, because drafting, no, that's not the practice. I wouldn't say that, yeah, I consider all of that the practice of law, but I don't think you need to be a licensed attorney to draft pleadings that are going to be signed and reviewed by your supervising attorney. I can't imagine where that is a requirement. It certainly isn't with the state bar or any of the ethical rules that I'm aware of.
And I would imagine the same is true for filing motions, correct? Your opinion.
Well, your question now is filing, though. That's different.
Preparing, sorry.
Drafting and putting together content for review. For the last 20 whatever years, I have had people doing that for me. Drafting drafts, rough drafts. I'm going to say rough drafts. Absolutely.
And I believe you said you have a template or a form that forms, is that correct?
I've got a very large bank of forms. I'm sure you do as well, Counsel.
You know, but when an individual comes to equal rights orders fathers, they all have unique situations, is that correct?
I wouldn't say all of them. I would say that most situations are pretty common.
But they have a unique story, each individual, correct? A unique problem?
It's amazing how frequently I can finish their sentences for them.
Okay. You mentioned that the defendants arranged for the media to be here. Do you recall that testimony?
Oh, yes, I believe that.
Well, why do you believe that? What is your proof of that?
Well, my proof is that we were here on Monday, and we got a late start, which was interesting because court was supposed to start at 8:30. For me, not for you. And the jury folks go down in the jury pool and those things happen downstairs. We came back up and we selected the jury and then we broke for lunch to be back here at 3. And somehow amazingly, the camera was here at 3 p.m. that day. And they had to have been tipped off and notified by somebody, and it wasn't me. And I don't think anybody else knew we were gonna come back at 3.
You mentioned about the language and terms in the website. I believe you said the term 1982 and 33 years and 85,000 fathers. You thought that nobody else would know that information besides Mr. Del Casal?
I think collectively, when you take everything that is on the publications, I try to express to the jury, all of it collectively, together as a whole, no one else would accumulate that collective information other than defendant Del Casal. And nobody else is in possession of all that. And I always like to use the word sometimes, in the aggregate. If we aggregate everything all together, he's the only one that has all that information stored.
I'm going to refer you back to exhibit number 24, please. That's another photo of all the men in the office and all the, do you see paperwork in that office as well?
I see papers, yes, on defendant Del Casal's desk. I see papers there, yes.
Is this where the meetings would occur in the front lobby here, or were they elsewhere?
Oh, back in the day, the meetings used to occur right there. They'd move the desk out and bring in chairs. That's exactly where the meetings took place, back in the early 2000s.
And how many individuals would normally could possibly be at those meetings?
Depend.
Give me an estimate, average.
Sometimes 3 or 4, sometimes 40, 30, 40. I mean, if you're asking me, I don't think you are, but defendant Del Casal, he would bring people in, and they would come to hear him talk quite frequently. Sometimes there'd be a couple of people there, and then other times you'd have quite a few. I don't know, maybe 20. And I didn't go to a whole ton of meetings, but I'd seen him. He's a good speaker, dynamic.
You mentioned also there was some Facebook, or what do you call it, or fake Facebook page that offended your son, and I believe it was, you may have mentioned, do you remember that? It was a fake, you alleged fake Facebook?
Yeah, it was very offensive.
Do you have any proof of that? Is there an exhibit of this?
No, and I wish we did, and I love that you asked that. You didn't ask in discovery, but the problem was at the time that came out, we were just deleting everything because we were in the just ignore them phase. So we weren't keeping a record, we weren't keeping a file. I didn't keep track of any of these things. I just was telling him over and over, it's all right, son, just ignore it. You don't need to keep anything. We don't need to keep records. This is just going to go away. So no, I don't have that
I
record.
just have any proof, that was it.
Counsel, you don't get to dictate how people answer the questions.
And if I had that record, I would have produced it. But no, we didn't say that back then. I was just, like, again, it was to kill him with kindness. Maybe ignore him. You know, do what you got to do. But no, we weren't keeping a dossier if that's what you're going after. We just didn't keep it around.
Next question, Counsel.
You mentioned ignore him versus call him. There's a difference there, right? Ignore versus call.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
That's okay, I'll move to the next question. Can you please refer to exhibit number 52?
Yes.
And can you describe, you mentioned, I think you talked about posting, did you see a name called, I think it's Arthur? You see that there?
There is a name, Arthur.
Okay, there was some controversy or on my part about, or clarification I sought to figure out who made that posting. Do you remember that?
Not really.
Okay. and you wanted to refresh my memory. Do you remember that?
No, I mean, I was very concerned about that they were going after Judge Marquis. She's really a nice lady.
Right, but when I asked one of Claire, you thought you refreshed my memory, you took an attack on me, do you recall that?
I'm not sure what you mean.
I'll move to the next question. We talked about filing a lawsuit in this case, and how the website, you saw the website, and it was traumatic.
No, I don't believe it said traumatic.
That's just, the question is, you saw the website, and it was traumatic to you and your family, I get it. But you made no phone calls to Mr. Del Casal, did you?
It wasn't traumatic to me or my family.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear it wasn't traumatic.
Um,
Talk about the website.
Question is, sir, did you make a phone call without all the other language
Oh.
in there?
well, according to Mr. Del Casal, he's not the author, so why would I have called him?
Because you thought he was the author.
I knew he was the author.
Well, then why didn't you call
What would that accomplish, counsel?
him? That's a good question.
Counselor, again, this is not a diatribe back and forth. Ask a legitimate question, give an answer. That's how we do this. Go ahead, counsel, ask a question.
What would it accomplish? The one way to determine that is by making a phone call. Do you agree?
No.
We talked about, earlier, we talked about the who is directory. I had to do a search of a domain name and domains by proxy.
Yeah, I testified about that.
Right, and you have a domain 702dads.com. But is that also used domains by proxy to hide the identification there on that domain?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I don't know if you're gonna find my name on there or my son's name, but we're not hiding. And we're not doing anything on that website that would cause us to wanna hide.
Parrish, you've already answered the question. Let her ask the next question.
You criticize people in the past as well, correct?
I think we've all criticized people in the past.
Were you involved in a somewhat public controversy when you criticized the judge?
Not that I'm aware of.
Well, you ran for judge once, correct?
Yeah?
Okay, and did you attack your opponent?
No.
Was that a yes or no?
Oh, no.
Are you sure about that? Or do you need
And I
time?
said no.
Your Honor, just object to this line of questioning. I'm not sure the relevance of, the litigation is over. Mr. Harris, business dispute with Mr. Casal.
I'll allow it, counsel.
Right.
This was brought up during this demand that attorney, or Mr. Del Casal and Prime Minister Franklin have at least promulgated some advertisement against judges. I think it's relevant in this matter. He's already said no, so we move on.
So the answer is you don't recall any controversy between you and a judge?
No, counsel, you asked him whether or not he had ever basically attacked a judge, and he said no.
So the question now is a new one. Do you recall any controversy between you and another judge based on your statements?
I do not recall any controversy, no.
What do you recall?
Objection form.
Sustained. Rephrase, counsel.
Are you saying you You are aware of a controversy, you don't recall a controversy? I'm sorry, can you clarify that?
I said I'm unaware of what it is you're speaking of.
Are you unaware of the name of the judge or just controversy in general with the judge? That's what I want to know.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, the name of the judge, Judge Levitt. You recall criticizing Judge Levitt?
You mean ever, counselor?
Yes.
Has any attorney ever criticized a judge in this county? Name one that hasn't.
I've criticized her heavily.
What's the question? Whether or not he's criticized a judge personally, or you're talking about the campaign? Let's limit it in scope.
Okay,
You were talking about this during the campaign in which he was running against another judge. During that time period, sir, did you ever have negative statements or comments about Judge Levitt?
I don't think I made any negative statements or comments about the judge. I definitely had a different way of the approach to the bench.
Okay, next question, Counselor.
Would you,
And I was unhappy with a couple of rulings that I got in the courtroom, where my client just got railroaded. And yeah, I've been, but I, like Judge said, I've been unhappy with a lot of judges a lot of times. And after, a couple of hours and you settle down, you're okay. You hope.
I have no further questions.
Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Judge. Conflict litigation with me, I'm not as organized as Mr. Needham, so my questions might jump a little bit all over the place. Mr. Casals, you testified, or I think you testified that Mr. Casals had other buyers for his business, but he chose you. Is that correct?
I believe that.
And he chose you because you had promised to carry on the business as he had done to help all these fathers.
Objection, I think it misstates his testimony.
I'll allow him to clarify to you if he believes that's different than what he stated.
I promised to help fathers as best as I could.
Okay. And isn't that part of the reason that you testified that he was angry because you changed the way he was doing the business?
I think he was angry because I was no longer prohibiting women from coming on the premises. As I stated yesterday, I found that to be offensive, and
Wasn't that also the fact that you were turning away some men who did not have the money to pay?
not that I'm aware of. I've not heard from any.
You mentioned that when you bought the business from Mr. Casals, that he just stayed on, or was it a part of the agreement that he would stay on?
I think the contract, it presupposes 6 months, and I believe that in my mind, I believe that he would be there for 6 months maximum.
Do you have a copy of that?
Sure, it's exhibit 1.
agreement? Could you,
It's on page 4, Counselor.
thank you, Judge. Let's go to page 4 of that document, which has already been admitted into evidence, and look at 6, and I'll just read it there. It says, seller shall, and Mr. Casal was the seller, correct? Seller shall remain at the premises as a consultant of the operation of ERDF for a period of 6 months. After the execution of this agreement, this term may be extended, amended, or terminated after 6 months, or the extent of the commitment may be reduced should seller desire to shorten this commitment of service.
I believe
as
that's
the
what I
agreement
testified.
of both parties hereto. Seller shall receive compensation for services as a consultant during the transition period from the receipt of the business, and that's really the next part, during this period. Seller shall maintain the existing operations in addition to training training buyer or his authorized representatives as to the daily operation of the business. And it says seller agrees to be on site a minimum of 20 hours per week. So part of the agreement that you had when you purchased the business that Mr. Casal would train you and the other persons who were working there. Is that true?
That paragraph is essentially what I testified to. And
It's-
part of that
I'm
was
sorry,
that
sir,
he
I'm just
would
asking a question.
train
Yeah,
me.
Counselor, we don't get to dictate how people answer, okay?
You're an
Counsel, I know you think it's a yes or no answer, okay? We all attorneys think we all have yes or no answers, but you don't get to dictate how witnesses testify. Sir, can you answer that first question? You believe it?
Yes, Your Honor.
Effective was
And
training.
as it states there, that I would receive some training, because I was the buyer, or my authorized representative, which was Cam, and then he would receive some training from Defendant Del Casal.
What kind
It
of
did say
training?
there that though it was a 6-month commitment, as you asked me about, but it could have been shortened if necessary or if desirable, based on the way I wrote it.
What kind of training are you expecting Mr. Casal to provide?
Oh, I guess just office management and teaching Cam, I guess, client customer service. Cam had a ton of training, had a ton of experience at a discount tire. And I really appreciate that company because they run a tight ship and it's a great training zone.
What did you expect
He
him to
brought a lot of great ideas and a lot of great thoughts, and I was just hoping that he can incorporate that with the practice of law now. We received some training from Ernest with regard to the operation there at that location. Now in the background, Cam's learning all kinds of things from me about practicing law and those other more technical things. He was getting it from all sides, but he brought in a tremendous amount of experience from Discount Tire. Really love the way that they run that business.
And you said that he should have gotten paid, his payment for the service he's providing would be monies that he would get from the business itself.
Are you referring to Defendant Del Casal?
Yes, sir.
Okay, not Cam, right?
No, Ken.
Oh, yeah, because I paid Cam. Yes, he was to take it out of the receipts. That's what the
Out
contract
of what
says.
receipt?
It says the contract's out of the receipts.
Out of what receipt, sir?
The receipts, I'm assuming what it says there is the receipts of the business.
And can you explain what the receipt of the business was? How did the business make money?
Well, my understanding at that time,
This is your business, sir. How did you make money?
She's talking about after the transition period. This is
Thank
after
you,
you
Judge.
purchased it. How did you compensate Mr. Del Casal?
yeah, the monies that he received, that I assume he was receiving from from those that were working there like they had been doing, that 10% that you heard was discussed yesterday, I assume that was what he would be keeping.
So you asked him to take money from, who was he taking the money from?
Would you hear the testimony yesterday that George and Scott testified that they were giving him money?
So that was the money you expected him to get, to pay him for the business that you bought?
That was my understanding at that time, and I knew that there were membership fees as well, that needed to be discontinued very soon. I didn't know the full extent of the membership fees at that time.
But what was your agreement with him about this payment? You said to take it from the business.
Just what's there in the contract.
And what money did you expect him to get? Monies from the other employees?
I didn't really have an expectation, it's just what's said in the contract.
Was there any other lawyers, were there, beside yourself, were there any lawyers working in that business?
When you say working, you mean in the location?
Providing service at that location?
There were many.
Could you tell us who they were?
Yes, Gerald Soflita was there. Oliver Melgar, myself, Roger Giuliani, Jordan Garcia, Ed Miley,
How often were they there?
and maybe more.
How often were they there?
Pretty frequent. I would see them there pretty frequently.
Didn't they all had their own offices, didn't they?
Yeah, everyone has their own office.
So how often did they go there?
I can't say exactly. I saw them there frequently. I was there frequently.
These persons were not lawyers, but they were preparing legal documents, were they?
Objection.
What person?
Wait, one second, who are we talking about now? Because we
The
just talked about.
employees at the office, in the Mojave
Okay,
office.
the employees at the office.
The persons at the Mojave office.
The persons that were there,
Yes.
that were what?
When they were preparing legal documents, were they?
They were drafting, yeah.
And they were not your employees, were they? Except for your son.
My son was my employee, yes.
But what about the other people who worked there?
They were not my employees. They were not W-2 employees to me.
So they were not your employees, but you were taking money from them to pay Mr. Casal.
No, I wasn't.
Let's go to Mr. Franklin.
Okay.
Do you recall when Mr. Franklin published that document online?
Well, as I testified, I recall that I found out on September 13th, I think it was a Thursday, 2018. I wouldn't know under the sun if that were not the case, but I was in Phoenix and I was giving that seminar and I was speaking to a couple hundred people and I happened to have that program and I just remember it like, very distinctly remember it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to tell you what day it is, but I was able to pull that program up that we showed to the jury and I was able to say, yep, that's the day, that's it right there.
And can you tell us exactly, could you pull up that document, exactly what part of it you said you believe was false?
And if you just let me know which one it is.
We're talking about Exhibit 2, I believe.
Thank you, Judge, I'm so glad you're there.
2? Oh, you mean 2, not the, oh, I thought she meant the,
I don't know if we're talking about the actual website or what we're talking about.
I
The
thought, it was-
website.
oh, the website, oh, okay. That's Exhibit 2.
All right.
And Counselor, we're not gonna have him repeat going through all those pages.
I promise you I won't, Judge.
Okay,
I-
because you just asked him which
you
portions of
have
that
my-
section.
You have my word on it.
Okay, he's already testified to it.
Bear with me for a second.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, you not find the document, you have it. Tell us on the first page of that document what was false.
On page 1, what is false? Well, when I deposed your client, Mr. Franklin, he said to me that he had done the title to the document. I'm not really able to see it here, because it's not up. But he told me that he wrote the titles to the document and he did all the graphics. And so he said there that the equal rights for divorced fathers, Kurt Harris, and the truth, and the part about where it says the truth, that's false. Would you like me to go on?
No,
Because then it says more about
No, sir, no, don't have to go on.
just that first
You
line.
There is, you said the truth about you, but isn't that his opinion as to what is the truth that he's stating there?
Absolutely not.
You think so, that if it says, well, the truth is, I didn't go do so and so and so and so.
That's not an opinion.
So you're thinking that when he said the truth is, it's not his opinion?
I don't think it. It is. It's not an opinion. When you say that something is the truth, you are not stating an opinion. That is
All
a
right.
fact. That is stating something as a matter
Here-
of fact.
Here's what he's saying, things have changed. Did things change?
No, not at that time.
Weren't things different after you purchased the business and made some changes?
No, this talks about the new, and there was nothing new. We'd been in charge for, I don't know how long it had been. It had been a long time.
When
That was 2015 when I took over, and this was published 2.5 years later in 18. Nothing had really changed. It changed very rapidly right at that very change there in 2016, but we really didn't have any changes after that. We certainly weren't new.
So he is talking about, if you read this website, he's talking about change from the time Mr. Del Casal ran it to the time that you ran it.
It doesn't say that in what you've just read.
But when you read the document, isn't that what it says? He talked about the first part of the document, talk about what Mr. Casal was doing, what he did.
If you're asking me what I thought, no. I thought it meant that there was some kind of a new equal rights that had just emerged, that it was new, because, like I said, we took over back in January 1st, 2016, and this is talking about new, and this is September of 2018, and it was a misrepresentation that somehow there was something new. There was nothing new.
The first page of this document, second page actually,
1 second, okay.
talked about the organization when Mr. Casal ran it. Isn't that true?
That's what we testified about earlier, yeah.
And the second page also, the next page also,
I'd have to look, but I assume it does.
talked about the
It
33
surely does. It's a
years.
historical account.
Mhm. But then it goes on to talk about when you ran it. And it talked about the money that was being charged to these people who were coming in.
I'm not sure where you're referring to.
Page 4,
Which line?
says many fathers who sought assistance shortly after the director retired commented that things went downhill quickly. So he was comparing the time when Mr. Casal ran it and when you ran it.
Well, I just don't know who those fathers are. I'm not sure the
I'm
source of
looking at
this
page
information.
4,
You're asking me
that's the first.
you asked me what was false, and that is false. There's no comparison because there aren't these many fathers.
But that is
They're not.
again, that is his opinion, isn't it?
No,
So you're saying factually there was no change?
I'm saying factually there are no fathers that are saying these things that he's saying.
How do you
he
know that,
said.
sir?
Well, obviously, your client would have brought him forward if he knew somebody.
Do you know all the fathers who came to your office?
I know an awful lot of them.
Do you know all of them?
No.
Approximately how many
Your
fathers have
client
come?
knows none, though.
Approximately how many fathers have come to your office since you've taken over the business?
I would have no idea.
So you don't know all of them?
I don't know.
So if he says fathers, he wouldn't know all of them, maybe?
When you say he, you mean Mr. Franklin?
No, but yeah, Mr.
Yeah,
Franklin.
he wouldn't know one of them.
So he might know some of them.
No,
How do you know that, sir?
because he would have identified him in discovery.
Can you identify all the fathers?
I can sure identify a whole lot.
Counsel, we've already asked this question, move on.
Hundreds.
Counsel, Mr. Harris, she's already asked it twice, you've already answered it twice. Move to the next question, Counselor.
All of these people who worked there, the paralegals, they typed their own documents, didn't they?
Are you talking about before I took over?
After you took over.
Oh, we got rid of their documents.
They prepared their own documents, didn't they?
No, we got rid of them. We made a
Miss-
change to my forms. We made adjustments to everything. Wanted to make sure that they were using my paperwork. When they drafted, things were gonna be drafted on my style and on my heading.
So are you saying that all of the fathers who came through after you purchased the business, they all were able to use pre-prepared forms?
I thought you were talking to me about the Scott and George.
Yeah, are those the only ones who were there? I think
Well, Arturo
Arturo.
was there for a while, yeah.
So,
Arturo didn't really want to conform and update and learn more, and he didn't want to go to
so
school.
the
A couple
forms
of my
are,
boys have had you as their teacher.
is it your testimony that all of the fathers who came after you purchased the business, they were all able to use pre-prepared forms?
Do you mean like self-help forms?
Mhm.
No, that's not my testimony.
Do you know where the person, George and Arturo and the other, where they got the information that they put in these documents they were preparing?
From me and from the clients?
So they have to rely on the information from the clients to prepare these documents, didn't they?
Oh, we all do.
Exactly. So they were preparing these documents based on what the clients told them.
They were preparing drafts of documents based on what information is provided from clients. But they have law that does not come from the clients. They have certain law that's coming from me, and I keep them up to date. They get a weekly sheet of a summary of all the Supreme Court rulings that are coming down, and all the new research that's coming out. They have to respond back to me that they've received their, and they've read it, and they acknowledge that they've seen the information. And I tell them, I give them a little summary about this. Supreme Court said this, Supreme Court said that, and we're leaning this way or that way. And I give them a lot of up-to-date, a lot of information. That goes into their pleadings. If we ever get a new case, published opinion, obviously, we always use those, but we can use unpublished opinions now too, which is great because I get those over to them as well, and with their citations, and so we're constantly changing our paperwork and updating it, and just trying to get better and better every day. That's why we call it practice the law.
So you would tell them what the law is and update them, and so they would make sure they put these in their pleadings.
And then they send it to me for final review, and I see everything that gets filed.
Do you meet with the client after let me rephrase the question. A client comes in, gives the paralegal the information, and the paralegal sends a document to you for review. Do you see the client anytime between the time that he talks to the paralegal and you review the document?
Sometimes.
No?
Sometimes.
Sometimes, but not all the time.
Yeah, sometimes I talk to them before.
But you don't see all of them.
Sometimes I see him before, sometimes I see him in the middle, sometimes I see him after, and sometimes Mr. Doyle sees him, or Mr. Melgar, or Mr. Garcia, or it used to be Mr. Saflita, and sometimes, I miss anybody? So others will see them at other various times
Are
as well.
you there when Mr. Melgar and Mr. Garcia and the other lawyers are allegedly there?
We
No,
try
I'm just gonna
not to-
object- I'm gonna object to the line of questioning, Your Honor. I just don't know where this is going.
I'm trying to figure out where we're going with it too, but the line of questioning basically, where are we going with this, counselor? Are we asking him how he's now set up his law practice?
Well, Judge, the point is that he said he sees some of these clients, the paralegal prepare these documents and he reviews them, and perhaps other lawyers review them. I'm
Sounds like
asking
every
him,
law firm in Nevada.
is he there when the other lawyers are reviewing them? So he has no knowledge, no direct knowledge that these other lawyers review them.
Other than the fact that they sign off on them as an officer of the court?
Do we have any document that they signed off on anything? We don't have any documents. Do you have
Wait,
documents?
wait, Counselor, are you assuming that these documents get filed pro se or that they get filed with an attorney's signature? You're the one now speculating on how they get filed.
Were any of the documents that were prepared by the paralegals that you reviewed show anywhere on them that you reviewed them?
Your Honor, same objection, well.
I'll allow it. That's a very general, broad question, but I'll allow it. Go ahead.
When I took over, they did not. Yes, they do now.
Do you have any proof of that?
Absolutely. You should have asked for some in discovery, or it's all public record. You can go and look them up, any of us. I have nothing to hide.
Can you tell us where in this document Mr. Franklin say something that was not true?
Mr. Franklin,
Not that you said the first page was, but
yeah,
let's move on.
That was untrue.
Say
No, it
page,
was untrue.
page 4.
page 4. Which four are?
We're using the bait stamp numbers, because the bait stamp numbers I think are different. We have a bait stamp number 2004.
I'm looking at this document, just as it says, I guess it's 004. The
Okay.
part with your picture on it.
And that's actually 2005 on the bait stamp number. So the picture that has,
Thank you, Jeff.
well, that's actually 006, the small picture. There's two pictures with Mr.
Could
Harris.
you tell us what on that page is by false?
Sure, the first word is retirement, that was false because Mr. Del Casal didn't retire. And it says I approached him, and I think that's a matter of,
Could we stop
debating
at-
whether or
could we-
not, you wanna stop at retirement?
Could I stop you for a second, sir?
Sure.
So he says it is retiring. What is you don't know what that word means, but he says retiring is, do you?
I think most of us know what retirement means.
So you're assuming that you're talking about retirement from other business as opposed to retiring from the business that you sold him, that he sold you?
No, I think most of us understand the colloquial word for retirement. It means I'm not working.
But you don't know what is meant by here when he's talking about retiring.
For me, it means I'm not working anymore. I don't know if it means anything different to anyone else.
And what else on this page is false?
Okay, it says that he was approached by attorney Kurt Harris, which there really wasn't an approach. There was an inquiry, because he was shopping it around, like I think I've already said, I've testified to it, unfortunately a couple of times, I'm sorry. But he was shopping it around to other individuals, and I just threw out there that if you ever thought about selling it to me, I would be interested. But I didn't do an approach, and this makes it seem as though I pursued and I went after it, and that's just not the case. I was pretty soft-handed, I was pretty easy, I didn't want to just come, flying in there. That's just not me. I don't like to drive a hard bargain. I don't like to do a hard deal. I'm just not that way at all.
But
If somebody
this-
wants my services, they want to do a deal with me, I want to do a deal with them.
But this was an interpretation of your interpretation as to approach as opposed to whatever you said that your feelings were about how he approached you on the business.
You asked me a question, I answered.
So that's a
It's
sort
not
of
true.
a semantic difference.
It's semantics for you. It's not true. Did you want to continue?
And what else is not true on this page?
Well, the director again didn't retire. And then it says there that I made representations that never happened, and that's not true. And saying that the reputations that never happened ended up being complete falsehoods, that's a little ambiguous, but that's also not true.
I'm sorry, what's not true?
Well, like I said, it's very ambiguous to say that you made representations that never happened that ended up being false.
What is representation, sir, you're talking about?
Well, who could know? Your client and defendant.
No, what,
Casal would have to
on
tell
this
what those
page, what are you
representations were.
talking about? It says representation is made that was not true.
I'm reading what it says, that's not true. I didn't make any representations that I'm aware of that never happened or that were false representations at any time. And you've already put the contract up, and you can see that the representations put in the contract, which is what we go by, were fulfilled.
We're talking about this, we're talking about the website.
The representations would be in the contract, right?
Yes,
That's
sir.
what we lawyers do. You say anything beyond the contract, you can't bring into this argument, you gotta go with what's on the paper. And so if we look at the contract, every representation in the contract came true.
Sir, we're not talking about the contract. We're talking about the document that you're alleged that Mr. Franklin put up. I'm asking you what in this page here that you're alleging is false.
This page that says
Could you be more
representations,
specific, sir?
representations never happened or were complete falsehoods is false. That is untrue. To go on further than that, it says there as far as helping low income and no income fathers, that is false. No representations were ever made about helping anybody of low income or no income. The representations were made that I would try to help everyone. So that's also false. So pretty much everything in those paragraphs is 100% false, and we can just continue on, but it's just all not true. If you could point to one of those representations, I could address it.
When he said on this same page that things went downhill quickly, isn't that an opinion?
No. It's a statement of fact.
What proof do you have that Mr. Casal and Mr. Franklin colluded to prepare this document?
We spent all afternoon and this morning going over that with the jury. I just don't have time to repeat everything that we just went through with them. These binders are full of proof. You
What
didn't print one
proof?
out, and I hadn't reviewed them before today, but
What proof?
this
do
binder
you-
is full of proof.
What proof do you have that Mr. Franklin and Mr. Casal got together to prepare this document?
Counselor, are you asking him other than what he's already testified to in his direct
I'm
examination?
not asking to go back, I'm asking him what proof you have.
He already stated it in direct examination, he made what he believes are the links. Are you asking him to repeat that testimony, Counselor?
No, I'm not asking him, sir, I'm asking him what proof does he have, is that specific proof?
Mr. Doyle went through for hours for these poor people with all the proofs and all the links. I'm not sure what you're asking beyond that.
Most,
It was painful.
you mentioned the letters that you sent to Mr. Franklin after you discovered the website.
I testified about
You
it.
testified.
And Mr. Doyle
Hold on,
showed
Mr. Harris, wait for a question, please. Counsel, question.
In the second paragraph, the last paragraph rather, on your February 27th letter,
Which exhibit is that?
That would be Exhibit 32.
Thank you, Your Honor.
says that I'm prepared to amend the motion. I prepare the motion to amend. This will be filed with the court. However, prior to filing, should you desire to provide us with the information, I would consider not amending it. Again, this is an opportunity we were never afforded. Again, Mr. Casals and his attorney are blaming you, and it is the defense he is raising in this suit. And it continues, should you desire to contact me to discuss this matter, then, and you continue. So isn't it that you are asking Mr. Franklin to tell you that Mr. Casals was the person who gave him this information when in fact he said it was not?
I don't totally
Pushing
understand.
on the second to last paragraph of the second page of your February 27, 2019 letter, she's asking you what is the intent behind that paragraph.
Oh, okay. Well, this was my intent. I was putting together a motion to amend because I had my subpoena back. And I knew that your client was the publisher. And I knew that he was the owner of the website. And I knew he was connected. But I didn't blame him. I found fault with him for doing something that was outrageous and wrong. And as a website designer, he should know better. In his deposition, he testified he knew better. But he knew it was wrong and he did it anyway, is what he said, because he wanted to make a buck. He just did it to get paid, is what he said. And I really just wanted his cooperation. I did not want to amend the complaint, but I had prepared it at that time. Under an NRCP 15A, we're allowed to amend our pleadings, but we have to ask permission after somebody, the other side has already answered. The other side had answered and blamed Mr. Franklin. And so at that point, I was thinking, well, here's my last opportunity to settle this, maybe with you, Mr. Franklin. Maybe we could bring this to a short end. If you'll just tell me who the author is. I was just trying to work it out with him. I didn't want to file against him. I didn't want to sue the man. I didn't want to sue defendant Del Casal either. And I let him know that he was being blamed. And that I guess Ernest wasn't his friend either.
In your
That was all.
March 15th letter, the very last paragraph says down there, very last line, Ernest Del Casal was recently in court, and this matter, and he is perfectly content with you taking the blame and all financial responsibility.
That's correct. I
Then
did write
you're-
that.
You are asking Mr. Franklin to say that Mr. Del Casal has assisted him with putting this up on the web?
That's not what that states.
What do you mean by that, sir? Mr. Del Casal perfectly willing to take the blame for Mr. Franklin being willing to take the blame and the financial responsibility.
What did I mean by that? I was letting Mr. Franklin know that defendant Del Casal was blaming him for the publication. And from what I was able to observe from our first court appearance, they were blaming Mr. Franklin, and they were perfectly willing to blame him and have him be the scapegoat, essentially, of the suit. As defendant Del Casal had said, I have no involvement whatsoever in it whatsoever. It's all your client, Mr. Franklin. And I just let him know. That was what I had observed. And I really, again, wanted him to cooperate.
Isn't it a fact that Mr. Franklin never told you what he would ask you to pay to get the website for equal rights for divorced fathers? He didn't tell you how much it was?
It is a fact that he never told me the amount. He just said if I paid him that money,
How much?
this would all go away. Well, I was curious to know how much money he was demanding.
Did he tell you how much?
No, he just demanded that I pay him. And so I went on to GoDaddy, and he's got it listed for $50,000.
You did not use the website after you purchased the business from Mr. Del Casal.
I didn't, I couldn't get access.
Did you ask Mr. Del Casal for access?
No, I didn't.
And
I
did
should've.
you pay, so you did not pay for any upkeep of the website?
I didn't know who to pay. I sent a letter to this Al Hinton, who I thought was the administrator, and I couldn't get a response from him. So I sent another letter to him, and I still never got a response. I was trying to find out who was running it and who had control, and no one would respond to me. I think his name was Al Hinton, Al something.
So you never got control of the website?
Yeah, nobody would give me the control.
And so you never kept it up?
Nobody would respond to me. I
And
couldn't.
so the website lapsed?
Yeah, I mean, I would have done the same thing with it. I would have buried it. I wanted it to go away.
And when Mr. Franklin purchased it, it had lapsed. It was there was no owner to it,
I don't know that.
but you did not keep it up. You did not pay to keep it up.
I couldn't. I didn't know who to pay.
And Mr. Franklin bought it about 3 years after you purchased the business?
I don't believe so. I don't know exactly. I'd have to sit and do the math real quick. I don't know if he owned it before the subpoena document. I really don't know about that. All I know is what's in subpoena exhibit 5.
I have no further questions, Judge.
Can you redirect counsel?
I don't believe so.
Any questions from the jury? Counsel's approach.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Counsel for the plaintiff, do you have any further witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
At this time, is the plaintiff rest this case in chief?
Yes, Your Honor.
Counsel for the defendant, please call your first witness.
Calling Mr. Arturo Sorrosa.
Remain standing, face the clerk, and raise your right hand.
You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Please state and spell your first and last name for the record, please.
Arturo Sorrosa, ARTUROSORROSA.
Good afternoon, Mr. Russell. Please have a seat.
Good afternoon.
Counsel, your
Mr.
witness.
Sorrosa, thank you for being here. I know that you came yesterday and we just couldn't get to you, so.
It's okay, it's fine.
What is your current address?
North Las Vegas, Nevada, 89030.
Do you know if the parties sitting down here?
I know everybody here.
How do you know Mr. Del Casal?
When I was 12 years, he used to sponsor a soccer team that I used to play for when I was 12 years old. And he used to pay for our uniforms, pay for our referees. So he sponsored the soccer team I used to play for when I was 12 years old. And then I worked at Equal Rights for Divorced Fathers. Well, I volunteered at first in the beginning when I was 18.
And how do you know?
Kurt, he would come around, he was one of the attorneys that we referred to, and he would come around often, and then he took over the office in 2015.
And do you know Mr.?
I know Michael.
How do you know him?
He used to come in the office when Ernest Del Casal was there, but he was like a frequent person, but then after that, I really never saw him again.
And how long did you work there?
I worked there from 2012 until 2019, so about 7 years.
And when did you see Mr. Franklin come in the office? While Mr. Del Casal was in charge, or while Mr. Mr. Harris was in charge?
While Mr. Del Casal was in charge.
Did you ever see him come in after Mr. Franklin, Mr. Harris took over?
No, not really. I can't recall that.
What was your job there at Equal Rights for Divorced Fathers?
I would draft documents for clients. I would interview clients, and I would direct clients in the direction that they should go.
What is your educational background?
I never graduated high school, never attended college.
Never.
Never.
So your highest grade is what you?
I was half a credit from graduating.
So when you worked for Mr. Del Casal, what did you do?
I started off volunteering my time there. I would just sit down, listen to what was going on, because I really liked what happened. They helped fathers with low income, no income, and I come from a similar household, so me coming from nothing and watching him help people who come from nothing, it really inspired me to want to become a part of the group.
And when did you start to actually prepare documents for clients?
It was about a year in, because first, I just wanted to absorb as much knowledge as I could. I wanted to understand the documents that I was gonna be preparing. So about a year in.
And what kind of training did you get to prepare these documents?
I had George, I would ask questions around the office. I would, ask why we had to put certain things in the documents, why we had to do certain things in documents. And I just asked a bunch of questions so I can obtain the knowledge I needed to prepare the documents.
Did you have attorneys who reviewed those documents for those clients when you were under Mr. Del Casal?
I never had any attorney like behind my back micromanaging me, but our clients always did have 3 attorney referrals in their hands at their disposal so that they can contact attorneys at any time and get the legal advice that they need.
So how would they get the names of these attorneys?
Oh, as soon as they walked into the office, the first thing they did was talk to Ernest Del Casal. Ernest Del Casal would sit down with them, and he would always write down 3 attorney referrals. And they would always walk out of the office with 3 attorney referrals, and they were more than welcome to call them and contact them at any time.
Did anything change after Mr. Harris took over?
Drastically.
Tell us about that.
So the first day, Cam, the office manager, he had called everybody in early so that we can have a meeting, and the very first thing he told everybody.
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for hearsay.
Staying.
So you spoke to Cam, the manager?
He spoke to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
He said that we were.
Well,
Objection, Your Honor.
Counsel, ask your question.
And based
Sir, you
on
have-
what
you have to
Cam-
listen to the question, please.
Based on what what you learned at that time, what changed in the office?
Everything.
Tell us exactly what changed.
Can I say what he told us?
No, you got
Just
to
tell us what
told
changes
us
were
what
made.
changed.
Okay, well, we went from being a support group to being a law office that only, helped people who had the money. We no longer help people who had no money or low money. They didn't have attorney referrals up until they did the complaint. They paid the filing fee and they did the motion and they made all these expenses, paid us all this money, and then they got the attorney referral and they were able to talk to an attorney, but before that, they had no access to attorneys.
When you were preparing documents, did you have an attorney after Mr. Harris took over, did you have, when you prepare a document, did you send those out to Mr. Harris to review?
No, Mr. Harris would show up to the office maybe 2-3 times a week for about 30 minutes and he would leave. He would rarely even interview clients or talk to clients while he was at Equal Rights for Divorced Fathers. And from my knowledge, he never took any documents of mine after I typed them. Scott, George, Cam, and reviewed them. Everything was prepared, signed by the clients, and it was submitted.
Did you have other lawyers to whom you could
We
send
had
your papers to review?
Gerald Suflita would come around for about an hour and talk to specific clients only. He wouldn't talk to clients that might have had really needed the help or something. He only talked to specific clients.
So
He had his clients picked out.
So do you know whether you have interactions with the other persons who worked in the office?
Oh yeah, I've worked with them for 7 years.
Did they send their documents out to Mr. Harris to be reviewed?
Not of my knowledge. Not of my knowledge.
Did they send them to other lawyers to be reviewed before the clients filed them?
Oh, no. When the motion was filed, they would the clients would gather all their documents and take them to Kurt Harris or to the attorney that they were referred to. But prior to them filing a motion, Cam told us that we couldn't give them.
Objection, Your Honor.
Because of what you were
Counsel,
told
hold
in
on.
the office, you couldn't
Sustained.
do what?
I'm sorry?
You, why didn't you give them, you were directed not to?
We were
Objection,
directed
Your
not to.
Honor.
Hold on. Again, counsel, wait, you gotta wait till I finish, you hear objection. Your objection, counsel.
This is gonna call for hearsay as far as what he was told.
What I heard from is basically, let's review that portion of it, then what was filed. Let's restate the question, counselor, without asking for a
Were
hearsay
you,
answer.
why didn't you have lawyers reviewing those documents?
Objection,
We
Your
didn't have
Honor.
any lawyers.
Objection, Your Honor.
Hold on, now he's saying why he didn't, not what he was told.
It assumes facts, not in evidence.
Okay, let's find out if he knows anything about that, counselor. Go
My,
ahead, sir.
We didn't have attorneys in the office all the time. Like I said, Kurt would come in 2-3 times a day for 30 minutes. So there was really no attorney supervision over what we were preparing or what we were telling the clients.
how were you paid?
I was,
At what time, counselor? Again, you.
During the
mixed
time
back
when
and
Mr.
forth.
Casal was there, how were you paid?
clients would give us money to us and then we would kick back to the office if that.
How much would you pay? And you prepared, what kind of document did you prepare?
At that particular time, I was doing complaints, answering counterclaims, reply to counterclaims, simple documents, letters, stuff like that.
And during the time Mr. Casal was running it?
Yeah.
And how were you paid?
By the clients, I would receive money by the clients and then I would give a portion back.
So you would keep the money that you earned?
Yeah.
And you would give back Mr. Casal a portion of that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know how to like legally say it or make it sound.
What percentage was you giving him back?
Was that
What amount were you giving Mr. Casal back?
10%?
Did that change after Mr. Harris took over?
Yeah, once Cam took over, he was asking from me.
Objection, Your Honor.
You were paying.
Hold on.
Calls for hearsay statement.
Okay, he was just saying after Cam Harris took over, then I didn't hear anything else after that, so not asking.
He was asking is what he said.
Okay. When Mr. Harris took over the firm, we're talking about Mr. Kurt Harris, not Cam, his son. When Mr. Kurt Harris took over the firm, did your pay change? How you were paid?
It stayed the same. I was still receiving money from the client, but I was giving back 25%.
Okay, so the amount of money that you paid into the firm or to the establishment was now not 10% to 25%.
Correct.
Okay, next question, Counselor.
With the amount that you were charging the client while Mr. Harris was in charge, did the amount that you took from the client for preparing these various documents, did that change from the time Mr. Casal was in charge?
Yeah, it went up 100 and something %. We went from charging $45 for a complaint. Sometimes if the clients didn't have all the money, I would type documents for $20. I would type documents for $30.
That's under Mr. Casal or under
Under
Mr.
Mr. Casal.
Harris?
And he was completely fine with that. There was no problem. When Kurt Harris took over the office, the complaint went from 45 to 125. And if the client was missing $20, I was not allowed to prepare the document. I had to send them out till he had the money.
What about motions? Were you preparing motions too?
I was preparing motions under Kurt Harris.
And what about under Mr.?
No, I wasn't.
Nothing.
I wasn't.
What were you charging?
200 to, can I say this? Under Del Casal, motions were $90. When Kurt Harris took over the office, motions were $200 to $250. And that's what we charged the clients, $200 to $250. And if they were missing any money, then we couldn't prepare documents for them.
And do you know what the other paralegals were charging?
Yeah, Scott was, I never saw Scott charge $200. It was either $225 or $250. George, I saw him do a lot of work for $200 because he wanted to give the client some sort of leniency and like give them whatever help he could give them.
I have no further question of this witness. Thank you, Judge.
Okay. Steve, do you wish to cross at this time?
Just one question. Mr. Sorrosa, did you have an opportunity to review the website in question?
I did. I saw it. I remember the day Cam discovered it. He brought everybody together, me, Scott, George, and he showed us the website. I didn't have much to say about it. I honestly always kept to myself. I never interacted with them because I knew that what was going on was wrong and it didn't stand for what the office was initially intended for. So, but I kept to myself, and everything on that website is 100 completely true. There is nothing false about it. Like I said, the first day Kurt Harris took over the office, Cam sat everybody down and he specifically told us.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sir, again, we're not gonna talk about, you answered the question, you've seen the website.
I'm sorry.
Counsel,
I'm sorry.
do you have any further questions, the fact that he said he has seen the website?
I think your answer was, in your opinion, everything was, from your estimation, it seemed accurate.
It's completely true because he went from being.
Stop, sir, you just
Objection, Your
answered,
Honor.
counsel? Yeah, sir, you just asked the question, it says 100% true, okay? Any other questions, Mr. Needham?
Yeah, in regard to
So it's not just one question, right?
after Mr. Del Casal left,
Attorneys always do that.
after Del Casal left, was there any issues in regard to the mail that Mr. Del Casal would normally receive? Any issues concerning mail?
I know that Cam was throwing some mail away that belonged to Ernest Del Casal. He was throwing it away.
What was the?
He just didn't want to deal with it. He did not want to, I don't know, contact him, be on the phone with him. He just rather throw it away than have to deal with him.
Okay, no further questions.
Cross, Mr. Harris.
What mail was this?
I can't specifically say.
Well,
but
surely you would have gotten it.
why would
Ernest,
I
right?
get it? It's not my mail.
Well, you're saying that was
It's-
returned.
Let him finish his answer, go ahead.
It's not my mail, so why would I receive it? But Cam did several times tell us that, oh, he got. something.
Objection, Your Honor.
Okay, now, counsel, you asked the
Well, he's
question.
calling for a hearsay at this point, though. He's gone into what Cam said.
And he did.
Okay.
I just asked him why he didn't get it out of the trash.
Oh, okay, you didn't ask him where to get out of the trash, you said what mail? So
Yeah.
now the question is, did you ever try to retrieve Mr. Del Casal's mail out of the trash?
I don't dig in the trash.
No, the question is, did you try to take it out? No, okay, next question, counselor.
Why?
And why not? Because you don't dig in the trash?
Why would I? It's not my personal property. Why would I? I mean, I'm just.
Did you make more money while you were working there when I took over than you did with Mr. Del Casal?
No,
You never made any more money?
for about a year.
Okay, so you told everybody you made more money, right?
Who's everybody?
You told me.
If I was making more money.
No, I was just asking you, you did tell me you were making more money. Do you recall that conversation?
Probably in the beginning, but
Okay.
after work, I was going 2-3 days without making any money, and I was making about $300 a week.
In,
So I went and got a construction job that pays me more.
in addition to that, do you recall telling me that the author of the website was Ernest Del Casal? Do you remember that?
Scott, George, everybody told you that Ernest did it without them seeing him.
Sir, did you ever tell him, we're not concerned with what other people told him, he asked you whether you told Mr. Harris that Mr. Del Casal was behind authoring the internet website page?
If I did, it was speculation. I never saw him. I never seen him did it. George,
No further questions.
Counsel, any redirect on that?
No, Judge.
Okay, no recross, counselor on the other cross? There was no redirect, and don't get to recross, so. Questions from the juries? Thank you, sir, you may be excused. Counsel approach. Sir, you're excused. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to break for the evening, of course. During this time, during this recess, you're admonished not to talk and converse among yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected to this trial, or read, watch, or listen to any report of or commentary on the trial, or any person connected to this trial by any media information, including without limitation, newspaper, television, radio, or the internet, or form express any opinion on any Subject connected to this trial, the case plan submitted to you, not to do any experiments or investigation regarding any matters raised in this trial, nor you to post on any social media forums about the trial or attempt to investigate anything you heard in this trial using any form of social media or the internet. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., please. Everyone, I'll see you here tomorrow at 10 o'clock with my stipulated jury instructions and my proposed ones clean, ready to be copied. Thank you. Thank you,
Have a
Norm.
good evening, Dad. Get some sleep.
Yeah, my staff laughed. Yeah, tomorrow's homework, council.
That's not gonna happen.
My staff tells me no. I don't sleep very well. That's obvious. When I get 4 hours of sleep, it's a good day.
Wow. I need more than that. I'm older than you.
That's why you use this.